Hi guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Knowledge Finder EDU. Today we have a special guest, Nathan, the founder of NNN Properties, the property management company based in Edmonton. They specialize in guaranteed rents, development, and HMOs. So we brought him here today to inspire those early stage investors, those looking to get into properties. So welcome, Nathan.
Welcome, thanks for having me. How you doing, okay?
Yeah, I'm very well. So before we get into the depth of your business, let's speak about yourself and how this all started, because you've got a lot of properties under management now, and also got your own properties that you've turned into HMOs.
Yeah.
So for someone of your age, that's already a great achievement. So well done. How did this all start? So what was your career journey?
Yeah, to be fair, I kind of got into this incidentally in a sense. My initial career, to be fair, my first job was in NatWest Bank, where I worked as a cashier for a few years. Then I started doing like a savings specialist role. And then, to be fair, I wanted to be a mortgage broker at the time, so I started doing like my mortgage exams and was shadowing the mortgage broker there. And to be fair, I applied, the role came up to become a mortgage broker, and I thought I'd get it because I was pretty much like almost doing the job. But the branch manager said, to be fair, I was 19, 20 at the time, and he said he was looking for someone that was more like in their 30s, 40s, that was more relatable to people looking to buy homes. So at the time, I thought that's nonsense pretty much. I was kind of, always wanted, quite a fast and impatient person, to be fair.
How did you feel about that at the time?
Yeah, I was quite disappointed and devastated. So to be fair, I started looking for other jobs, to be fair. And I managed to secure a job at Swinton Insurance, initially like as a sales executive. And I just thought, because I was a bit hard done by there, I just decided to work. It was the same sort of industry, like financial services. So I decided to start working at Swinton Insurance.
Yeah.
So I worked there for a year, and then I got mixed up. I've always sort of been working, but always trying to do things maybe a bit ahead of time. So I got mixed up in some stuff, to be fair, that resulted in me actually losing my job there.
Yeah.
So I was actually a branch manager. I became a branch manager after a year. Lost my job, and there was a lady that I used to do all her insurances for.
Yeah.
And I used to manage in like all different branches in like East, North London, but she would always follow me, and she had an estate agent, and she kept pretty much saying, come and work in my estate agent. And then when I lost my job, to be fair, I spoke to her, and she gave me the job in an estate agent, which was in Ilford. And at the time, to be fair, that was probably like my lowest paid job in like the last, like maybe like in the last like 5 years. Like my lowest paid job. So it was a bit of like a humbling experience at the time. And I didn't really see it as an experience until maybe like years later, or even now really, I see it like, that was sort of all part of the
plan.
Journey. So how I initially started is, I started working with this lady. And what they did is they were pretty much the first people to kind of do guaranteed rent in like the East London area. I used to work with a lot of like local authorities and charities, and I used to go and meet the people from the councils. When they were doing inspections, I would meet the guys from the councils and the landlords. And I was literally just, because I came from a sales background, when I would meet the people when I would go on inspections with landlords, I would always ask landlords, do you have any other properties, or, can you give us more business?
Yeah.
So I started bringing on a lot of more business to the business, even though that wasn't my initial role, but just with that, just because I came from a quite sales sort of orientated person.
Yeah.
I started doing that. And there was a guy that worked in the council that every time we'll do an inspection, he would come, and he kept encouraging me. He's like, this lady is like a millionaire. Why don't you do this for yourself? You've got you build a lot of rapport with these landlords, and it seems like they pretty much just want to deal with yourself. At the time, I was like getting married. I just got a place with my missus, so I was quite, I wasn't prepared to really take that leap at the time. I actually went to work again with another estate agent for 1 year after. Literally, that the difference there was that so the initial estate agent I worked with, she was like they managed about 1,000 properties.
Yeah.
And I went to work with another estate agent where the owner, the owner pretty much owned about 1,000 properties, and he wanted to get into managing properties.
Yeah.
So like taking on properties from actually other landlords and trying to sort of build a business and a brand.
See.
So I was doing business.
Yeah, you've had quite a bit of experience before you even started out then. So if we just rewind back to when you lost your job and you met this lady that's taking you on, at that point, what like told you, okay, I'm in this environment, let me get to know these landlords, let me interact with them, and what was in your brain was telling you those are the people to know and they might be useful for the future?
You know, at the time, to be fair, it was just me trying to sort of try and, I wouldn't say impress her, but anywhere that I've worked, I've always tried to, you know, do my best, or, you know, maybe do stuff that probably maybe might have not been the exact job role, but just pretty much do my best. And literally in my head, it was for me to really go to and say, look, I'm bringing you all this business, you know, can I maybe get a bigger bonus or try and make more money from the situation, to be fair to you. So that was pretty much my initial instinct, but it was probably just second nature, to be fair, to talk to landlords and try and get more business as opposed to so that was.
I'm with you. So they always say in your environment you should like get it how you live, basically find ways in your environment, find your skill sets, and then see where does the opportunity come then. And also, how can I explain it? If you're in, for example, the property industry, you're getting a vast amount of experience before you're able to do your own thing financially.
Yeah.
Plus, you're meeting everybody you need to know on the way up, basically. So when you do your own thing, these people are contactable. So people always have like the entrepreneurial mindset. Oh, I don't want to get a 9-to-5, like the new age entrepreneurs. I just want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to work. I just want to go straight into business. But from everybody that I've spoken to, they've put high value on education and actually working prior to starting their own thing. So I found that part interesting. So after you've gained all of this experience now, you've met another guy that's given you the gems, basically, and told you to do your own thing, which is quite funny because that exact same thing happened to me. And it was a random guy that like he was a client of mine. I was working on his site, and he said to me, "Why are you doing this? You're from London. You should go and work in the banks and do all of this kind of stuff." And actually, like, I listened to him, but I didn't like listen to him like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do what he said. But it was something that was just in my mind after he said it. That's great. So when that guy said that, what was going on in your mind?
No, even like going back to what you said about like working, you know, about working. I think, to be fair to you, like there's certain things that you learn in work, like about, you know, sort of just discipline or more like the structure. You know, and even just things like day to day, just pretty much just the discipline and the structure of working. So you've pretty much got like set times. Like at the moment I work probably like 8 to like 10 in the night, but I always try and keep like the core principles of like when I was working in like Swinton Insurance, we used to do like late night calls, like 8 o'clock. And I used to kind of hate it because it was almost like a punishment that you're late, you want to get home. But now like with my own business, it's like, you know, I don't mind, I'll put in the hours, but it's still like remembering sort of that sort of principle about, you know, there's going to be times when you're going to get people, you know, later in the evening, and that's just meeting their needs, you know, that's just delivering good customer service for them. And there's some people where, you know, there's just certain things that you got to call them in the morning and have that structure, and then, you know, maybe you do your appointments after. And I think work sort of teaches that structure as opposed to just thinking you can go out there and do it yourself. That's why I would encourage that, to be fair, in that sense.
No, I definitely agree. So that this guy's come and said that to you, then what happened after that?
After he planted the seed, to be fair, I had other landlords that I had brought to the business that he was saying to me, yeah, if you ever decide to take the leap, I'll give you properties, to be fair. I'll bring my properties to you, and just so I don't like rush through things, basically. So I started working with this guy that pretty much wanted me to sort of build his business. So he had lots of properties that he owned, and he was making like studio flats in them and maximizing his rent. And he had a team of builders, and I would literally oversee all of that on one side. So I was one part of the role, and the other part of the role was trying to actually bring him landlords, so properties that he didn't own, properties that he could lease and build the management. And in that, I ended up registering him with like the same councils, so that way we had sort of an exit. So when we brought on properties, we could rent them to the council, who would give us our guaranteed rent. I ended up meeting the same guy that I met in my other company on another inspection. He's like, "Oh, now you've gone to another millionaire, even more, even to make them a billionaire, basically. Why don't you do this for yourself?" So so just literally one day, I just said to my missus, to be fair, I'm gonna do this for myself. I've got a few landlords that wanted to come over with myself. So the guy in the council he helped me sort of set up tender with the council and get set up on their system.
It's probably like a guardian angel, this guy.
At the time, I thought, it's going to be easy, but a lot of my landlords are going to come through in the end. There's actually only one landlord, and he gave me 3 of his flats. So I started managing those. I was able to register them with the council. So at the start, to be fair, how it was is that the council usually pay you like 1 month in arrears. So it's guaranteed you would always get your payment each month, but the initial payment they don't pay you. So where a lot of landlords want rent in advance, you don't get that from the council. In my flat at the time, every day, to be fair, I would literally just call up landlords on Gumtree, and I just say, look, I can manage a property, I can offer you guaranteed rent. Started talking to friends and family, and people just started referring me to referring me to friends and family, and that's just how it started, to be fair, initially. But
how long was you in that stage for? Because when we spoke to Levi Roots, he done the same thing, and it's like really interesting to see the common denominators across these interviews with our guests. Levi said he went to everywhere on the map that ended in Shire, just because there's no rusters there. So he went to anywhere in England that had Devonshire or whatever, and started selling sauce in those markets, and spent 2 years doing that before he went on the show. So how long was you in that phase?
I'll say for about a year, to be fair. So so just coming from the jobs that I had before, it was like, to be fair, I became quite complacent. I was almost like in a rat race. I was quite comfortable in a sense. And even in my head, I thought, I'll probably be like, I don't know, like an area manager at Swinton Insurance. Or even when I was at NatWest, I thought, I'm going to be like this top mortgage advisor here. So I thought this was like the only way to sort of go. And it was only when I started working, we initially with like the first lady at the estate agents in Ilford. When I say like she was literally relentless and hungry for business, like she would never like let the phone go down, or like say someone was saying, they want £10 extra, like she'll be bidding with them, okay, £5, and she'll close the deal. And I learned a lot about sort of hustling in those environments when I was, almost in a sense humbled. So so like for example, for the first, after I took on those first 3 properties, I literally would just talk to friends and family, and some people would give me a property to manage. And in that time, it was like, sometimes so there's like, you need a lot of like safety items for properties. So I would do like the safety certificates out of my own pocket. And just a few that maybe if they needed paint, the property needed painting and decorating, I would improve the property slightly. But I'll do that at my own pocket just to sort of win the business. And just slowly, so I think after about a year, I got to 20 properties that I was managing. That was pretty much through like word of mouth, recommendation. Some was cold leads. And I think at that point, that's when I was like as comfortable as I was when I was like sort of working. But I could see the vision, like in my head, I was like, okay, I could get to 100, like I can get to 100 properties, or actually to keep going, sort of thing. But it took me about a year before I was like, I was alright, to be fair. But for like the first 3 to 6 months, was literally just, calling around and just keeping faith that, people would trust me to sort of look after their properties, to be fair.
Yeah.
So.
Was there any point where you thought, oh, I should just get another job?
To be honest with you, when I was doing that, to be fair, I used to do there was something called TaskRabbit or Handy.com. So people didn't really know, but I used to build wardrobes for people in the evening. I used to paint just to supplement my income during that time. And to be honest with you, it wasn't until after the first year, I wasn't until after the first year where obviously I knew that I don't need to do anything else but this. But I would just, to be fair, I would do that to it. And it would give me doing things like the painting and the wardrobe and building wardrobes and stuff for people. I could do it in my own time, so it gave me the time to concentrate on the business and then do that. But there's no shame. Just kept my head down and did that.
Wow, definitely. That's amazing. And for me, that's the kind of the inspiration I want to capture, because there's always points where you have to put your head down, do stuff you may not necessarily want to do for the end goal. But I think so many people get caught in the turbulence when something goes bad or whatever. They haven't got that grind to think, all right, I'll do whatever it takes to build this up. And in the meantime, I got to do double time to just survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%.
So, that's great. That's a great story. And now in this day and age, anyway, there's so much ways to make money. Like you say, TaskRabbit, Fiverr, all these kind of different outlets. You could be a freelancer for actually anything, any skill that you have. You can go online and near enough sell it. So it is good for people to know these things, because even now a lot of people don't know about that kind of stuff. So that's great. So in terms of capital now, let's speak a bit more about property investments for those who are interested. If you wanted to invest in property yourself, how much capital do you think a person needs to become an investor?
So just the core, most with investing in property, it just depends the location, obviously, or where you're looking to buy. But just say maybe I give probably more example myself. So initially, with buying, most lenders, most lenders want you to sort of have your own residential property first. What that does is that just means that you've got some sort of experience of how to look after a property, and also they can sort of see that stability, basically. But after, in terms of investing, the general rule of thumb is you don't really need a minimum income. But some lenders ask for about 25,000 as a minimum income, but there's a lot of lenders that you don't need actually any income whatsoever. You just need your deposit, which for buy-to-let will be 25% of the property value or the purchase price. I wouldn't put a figure on exactly how much you need in terms of capital, because like I said, you can buy properties in some parts of England. You can get a 3-bed for 100,000. In some parts of London, the cheapest you can get a 3-bed for maybe 350 to 400. But it's more on the percentage term. You need at least 25% to initially buy. And then there's some people that, to be fair, they're creative and they're able to attract investors that will maybe fund the initial 25%. And then, if you have a way of maybe maximizing the rent, maybe you can then split the profits with them that way. So you're giving them a return in their investment and you're still able to sort of buy. So I wouldn't sort of limit yourself. I know people that are pretty creative with doing deals and giving people returns. It's people that have money sitting there that don't know what to do with it. So if you can possibly, help them make a better return in exchange for, obviously, maybe going part in a partnership or a joint venture with purchasing a property to invest in.
And how would you find those people?
Finding them, to be fair, you just got a network. To be fair, you just got to be out there networking, talking to people, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people, there's a lot of these people. There used to be this company used to call me every single day saying they got investments in places like Bishop, Stopford, or in Newcastle, where you can buy a HMO for like something's like 100 grand, and and I think I just signed up to something like years before I just signed up to, and they had my number like as an investor, and they just kept calling. But yeah, there's a lot of companies out there, to be fair, that have, you know, investors on their database, and maybe just give them a call and speak to them and say, look, this is sort of my business model, this is what I can do. You know, would it be possible for you to pitch that to your investors? Maybe just speaking to like friends and family, because I know a lot of this thing is, you know, this business is literally based on trust and building relationships with people. So, you know, there was landlords that I used to knock on the door for years, like, give me your property, can you give me your property to manage? I even had family members that were like, let me manage your property, maybe like 3-4 years ago when I first started. And it's only like in the last maybe year and a half where they're like, oh yeah, I've got properties, yeah, you can manage it now. But that's because they've seen sort of the track. Now we've got a bit more track record. You know, they can see that I didn't just started this thing and I'm going away. They can see, you know, there's a foundation, there's somewhere that they can go to. So a lot of it is just keep pushing, and eventually you'll sort of get there, man. Yeah.
Persevere.
Yeah.
So how would somebody go about setting up a HMO then?
HMO. Yeah, so initially with setting up a HMO, initially what you want to do is get so most boroughs now, when you want to set up a HMO, you need there's something called Article 4 that the councils have brought in, where they require you to have planning permission. So if you want to set up like a HMO, I'd probably wouldn't say stay away from those areas, but if you are buying like in an area where you need planning permission, then I would say maybe just try and consult a planning consultant first, just to see what the likelihood of you getting planning permission to convert a property from residential use to like it's almost like a mini hotel usage, basically. So first thing would be, you know, speak to an architect. First thing, we find the property, or if you've already got the property, that make sure it's got sort of, you know, the size or the scope to make a HMO. So do your numbers first. So what we usually do is we actually look to buy like 3 beds and convert them to 5-bed HMOs. So we pretty much just make sure, you know, what we're buying at our initial investment, you know, we can make this back maybe within, you know, at least 3 years. So just make sure it makes sense from that perspective first. And then after that, you want to sort of talk to a planning consultant or an architect to submit the plans for change of use. If you're in an area where you don't need that, then pretty much all you're doing is trying to, you know, you can make a HMO where it's just rooms and they share the bathroom and the kitchen. So with that, all you pretty much need to do is apply for the license. Prior to applying for the license, you just got to make sure you've got your alarms, like in all the rooms, on all the landings. Make sure you've got your fire doors on all the room doors for health and safety. Then you want to get your electric certificate, energy performance certificate, gas certificate, like a fire risk assessment, and there's a few other things like a fire test certificate. But just ensuring you've got all the safety certificates for the property. Submit your application for a HMO license, and then within that actual period when you've submitted the license, you can actually start housing people there. And so long as, you know, the property is to a good spec or a good standard, it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be top spec, but decent standard where people are living, then you'll be able to get your license anyway, to be fair. But our approach, what we do is we create ensuite rooms for people. A lot of people nowadays want actual studios or as close to self-contained as they can. So we try to get as close to that as we can. So we create ensuite rooms where we'll give people like mini fridge freezers, maybe like a microwave, TVs on walls, whatever sort of makes people more comfortable and feel like they can do everything they need to do sort of in the space, in that one room. That's what we try to do, to be fair, with our HMOs.
So that's a lot of requirements. So can people come directly to NNN Properties and basically say, I've got this capital or I've got this property, can you turn it into a HMO for me?
Yeah, definitely. So, to be fair, how I initially started even was the first landlord that gave me his 3 properties. I used to take him around with my old workplace, where so the guy used to just buy properties pretty much every week. He was buying a new property, and he was just converting them into studios and ensuite rooms.
Yeah.
So I took that landlord around, and he said he's got this property in Gants Hill. I think we can do something like that with it there.
Yeah.
So when I took the leap and started the business for myself, we actually went into a project where the builders that were working and they said, look, they only want to they're happy to sort of work with myself. In the end, he stayed there and he actually ended up giving me he referred his brother to me, who was also a builder, but he was also a builder. So we actually started, that was my first project, which we created actually 7, some of that bedsits / studios in Gantsville for a landlord. And I think he initially before was maybe getting about £1,600 in rent. And now, we managed to increase his rent where he had 7 rooms and was getting on average about £750 per room at the time.
Nice.
So that was sort of our first project from start to finish. And after I did that, I sort of used that as an illustration of what we can do. So we've done various different projects for landlords. Sometimes where I meet landlords and I can see their scope, I say to them, look, a lot of landlords want as much rent as they can. So I'll say to them, look, there's a way that we can get you more rent, and we can also guarantee that rent. So with that is that we can be basically if an investor has money that he wants to maximize his rent, we can create ensuite rooms in the property, and we're able to offer a guaranteed rent. Once the HMO is done, we can do everything from start to finish. Once we've got the license, we're able to tenant it and offer a guaranteed rent against it. Alternatively, we can just literally fully manage the property for you, so you don't have to do anything from start to finish and throughout duration of the property. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. So there you have it, guys. If you've got some capital to invest, you want to get into the property industry and may not have like an in-depth knowledge in it, contact Nathan and he might be able to increase your rents tenfold by the sounds of it. What challenges have you faced in business so far?
Yeah. I would say challenges at the beginning were mainly just getting people to obviously give me their properties to manage. Obviously, usually with people's properties, a lot of the landlords that we're initially dealing with, it was some of them had previously maybe lived in the property, and so they had a lot of attachment to the property. So it wasn't like your seasoned landlords where they were literally just buying the property to just for an income. A lot of them had sort of attachment to it, and it was pretty much just really I used to say to landlords from the start that I'll look after this property like it's my own, and you can call me pretty much at any time, and it'll be myself personally dealing with it. But still, you get some people that would say, what, I'd rather go with an agent that's been running for about 5-10 years. They've got a bit more behind them, or you've got estate agents where they've got, it's almost like a franchise, like a big franchise. You get landlords that will say, I'd rather go with them. But so that was the initial challenges at first, sort of being able to win business. And like I said, it was mainly just word of mouth recommendation, just keep knocking on people's doors and saying, let me manage your property, give me a chance. And then after, I say towards the middle stages where we maybe had quite a few properties, we had some properties under management. I think the challenges in business was really just ensuring that, you stay sort of organized, and that you're able, you stay organized and sort of stay on top of actually looking after these properties. So, challenges were pretty much maybe, finding, team members or staff that could pretty much assist me sort of on their journey, and also sort of keeping them sort of motivated. So what I did to sort of overcome that was that, I would literally say to if you brought me properties, I'll do a profit share with you in terms of the profit that we make each month from this property. And it was pretty much just saying to them, look, in the same way that, this residual income has sort of replaced my income, you can do the same from just, referring properties to us, to myself, and we'll look after it together. And that allowed, from doing that, to be fair, that allowed us to sort of grow from only like 100 properties to pretty much like 300 properties in like pretty much the space of like another year, to be fair, year and a half. And then of recent, I would say the challenges now, like I think more now it's a bit more easier for us to get landlords or like your normal day-to-day landlords that have just sort of fell into it. With that, it's more sort of the same thing really. You're pretty much saying that it's, you're going to get a better service from us as a personal service. Yeah. But at the same time, we've also got the track record. So on both fronts for like sort of, being accountability and being able to know that they're going to, be paid. They are actually going to be paid, as well as getting the personal service. So it's all well and good being like a nice guy and trying your best for someone. But like nowadays, how the industry is, if like something goes wrong with your property, it can be like the difference between you paying back 1 year's rent back to your tenant, or it could be the difference between if you get it wrong, like maybe the council being on your back. So just ensuring that on that side, we're completely compliant and professional, but also we're still able to sort of deliver that personal service where you can actually talk to myself personally or one of like the property managers. They are actually your sort of independent, your own personal sort of property manager for your property. You're not being like fobbed off to someone else. So I think, so that was pretty much, that's pretty much still a challenge in itself, but it's not so much of a challenge now, sort of, being able to win business. It's more just trying to sort of grow the team and having the right people to sort of grow the business is more sort of the challenge, to be fair. Yeah.
How would you say you've been treated as a black male within the real estate property industry?
I would say, to be fair, I'll say my race hasn't really impacted sort of how it's been in the real estate industry. And my reason for that is, to be fair, a lot of the landlords that I've met, most of them are from like ethnic minorities, if you want to call it that, or I've always found, to be fair, that sort of ethnic minorities that have sort of maybe come from sort of overseas or back home, in their mind, their first sort of investment has always been like property, or I need to own property. Like sort of growing up, my mum, my mum's quite an entrepreneurial person who always wants to try and, she's always wanted to try and do things. So she, like, when I was younger, she was like doing all this like network marketing and that stuff like ACN, and she would ask me to come to the meetings, and it never pretty much propelled for her anything. But she always had that in her mind, and she would always say like, property is, a safe bet. So I think that's in the minds of a lot of sort of, minorities that, I need to get a property. Yeah. And in having said that, most of the people that I've found that have referred me the most, or that I've met, most of the landlords that I have are probably, from ethnic minorities, so they're either like Asian or black, and they've been most forthcoming in like recommending me to their friends and family. That's and when great. They recommend me to their, and it just trickles down, so then they'll recommend me to their friends and family and so forth. So not to say all our businesses like, from black landlords or minorities, but I think they are a lot of, you'd be surprised, they are a lot of like, black people that are doing really well in property. They have properties to rent. They're doing development deals, they're building properties. Yeah. And I've been able to sort of connect with them and help them manage their properties. And so it's not been a disadvantage at all. Yeah.
So why I ask that is because not within our community, not everybody thinks, okay, let me go and open estate agents. Like the large estate agents like your Foxtons, and they're owned by like large corporate people. So you don't just see a guy that's like gone to school in Tottenham open an estate agent. So therefore it just goes to show it can be done, and it's kind of what we was discussing earlier, getting into different industries and actually having ownership within those industries. There may not be anything stopping you from doing it apart from just doing it. So why not just go for it?
Yeah. My advice would be, pretty much just go for it. Really, to be fair, like I said, it wasn't really planned that I would do this. I didn't really have in my head that one day I'm gonna own a estate agent. It was pretty much just something that I sort of fell into, but I've always been sort of hungry and motivated, and said I wanted to, reach specific heights in life by like by like 30. I always said I wanted to. To be fair, growing up, I wanted to be like a millionaire by 30. So in school, I was like quite like competitive. We had a group of friends that were like competitive, and we'll say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and sort of that's more being in the back of my head and propelled me to sort of try and do well in life. Or like the fact that I always said, look, growing up, I sort of gave my mum a lot of headache. So just finding ways. My main thing was really just finding ways to sort of make her proud and make sure she was sort of looked after. So in doing that, pretty much I was just going, just pretty much just trying to, get business on when I started this. Initially it was just for me to just be comfortable, to be a stage where I'm comfortable. It kind of became something bigger, like when obviously we got the office. Once we got the office and pretty much just started, once we got to maybe about 100 properties that were managed, I kind of sort of knew that, this can be big. And obviously now, to be fair, like sky's the limit. So I'd say pretty much you just got to start and persevere. There'll be times where it's like you don't want to sort of do it, or you feel like you don't even want to get up. But for me, like, I just remember when I used to work in like Swinton Insurance, doing like late nights to like 8, 9 in the night, calling people for car insurance, and we're probably like the highest quote at the time anyway, because Go Compare was cheaper, but I still had to do it. Whereas now, if I'm like calling someone, pretty much the money is, I'm going to receive 100% of this money, or, or my team, me and my team, we're going to have 100% of this money, as opposed to it's going to, some corporation or someone that, in that sense. So that was pretty much my motivation. And I would say, so long as you've got a strong enough why, and you've got a reason that you want to sort of, you've got a reason to do well, then just keep going, and eventually like the doors will open and you get what you put in at the end of the day.
Definitely. And you mentioned that you had a friendship circle that was very competitive, and I actually happen to know some of your friends and whatnot. So he has a circle that. What school did you go to again? Was it Glasmore?
Yeah.
So your like the year group below you, I think those few years anyway, have a lot of successful black males that are now. Some of them you may know are artists, doing a lot of different things. You got Ice Jules, Zolly, he went to that school. So they say your friend, like you are the company you keep, etc. So do you think that played a big part in your general motivation, having these good circle of people around you, motivated people around you?
I'll say definitely now. At the time, it was definitely very, competitive at school, but it wasn't like anything. It was just in a sense where it's like you got to do well because this person. Or when I was at school, like, a lot of people were playing football. To be fair, so we had a lot of people that became footballers. Or I think like Chick was in a year above me, and he was doing really well in America and all this stuff. So it was like, I want to be doing well. But I think as I got a bit older, to be fair, I kind of more, in a sense, maybe like distance myself from sort of friends, but just to sort of keep focused. I was fortunate to sort of, I had a girlfriend from early, and like been together for years, so that sort of, all my setbacks, she kind of always stood by me, or didn't like look at me and like, oh, this guy's a bum, or what's he doing it now? So from that always put in my head, what, I've got to be successful, and I've got to sort of make things, I've got to live a good life, we've got to ensure that we live a good life from that standpoint. But then I think as going on time, like I've probably reconnected with like a lot of, like with friends that are pretty much, doing well, and we'll have like the odd chat maybe for like half an hour just to like motivate each other. And then we probably won't even hear from each other for like 2 months because everyone's sort of busy just at their own grind. But it's always good to have like a good friendship group where everyone, maybe not in the same industries, but you got the same mindset, and like you just encourage each other to sort of just graft, to be fair. So yeah, man, I always say I'm young, so in my head I'm still, 20 to be fair. So I just try and graph like I've in a sense like I've got nothing to lose and like I've got everything to lose. You know what I mean? That's pretty much that's pretty much just how I live day to day. Yeah.
And just before we close, what would you say has kept you on this path rather than just, I don't know, going down the incorrect path like so many people do? For example, you said when things were hard, you was on TaskRabbit, building wardrobes and stuff.
Yeah.
What made you stay on this straight and narrow path with the end goal in mind and not take an easier road?
To be honest, when I was like 19, 20, I was pretty close to like going to prison, and I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say it was just pretty much just me just seeing how like that made sort of my mum sort of feel, and I think I had my missus at the time, just sort of how they looked at me at the time, like they wasn't looking like I was a bum, but they just looked at me like in disappointment, like they felt like I was much bigger or smarter than this. So because I was just so close to sort of going to prison, I think I ended up getting like a suspended sentence. But I remember the judge saying to me, like, he was reading like references from people. I think I had like references from like my old employers and school teachers and stuff.
Yeah. And
they were all kind of saying like, "Oh, yeah, this is a bright boy," or blah blah, something along those lines. Anyway, so he was like to me, "Oh, yeah, I can see that that on one hand you're like this person, on the other hand you're this person, but I'm going to give you this last chance." That was like sort of the parting words.
It's amazing.
It's like a miracle for me, to be fair. So yeah, so when
that's amazing.
Yeah, so when I was doing all this other stuff, I thought, you know what, I just thought, to be fair, where I had once I got to about 20 properties, in my mind, to be honest with you, it didn't make sense for me to do anything else because it was just a numbers game. I just thought in my head, oh, if I get to 100 or I get to 200 properties, where I'm going to be making this much a month, or at least I know as a minimum. You do take some losses in property, so it's not like everything straightforward. Like, especially those times, I would like, a lot of the times I would lose on properties to get the business, knowing that maybe this landlord had another 5 properties in the background he was going to give to me. So let me just prove myself and let me drive around all day for him and pick up stuff. Or do you know what I mean? Just do little things, and he send my painter there and not charge him. Yeah. But, maybe in month 6, I'm gonna start making a few £100 a month or something from this landlord. So, to be fair, it was just more knowing that I can do it that sort of kept me at the park. But you got to start. You got to start, and you got to just be disciplined, to be fair, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's amazing you said you had that moment where it's basically you get a last chance, because the exact same thing happened to me. And I think I explained this offline with you and Zolly, but that it was at that point I made a couple decisions in my head, knowing what I'm capable of as well. It's like literally the same thing you just said. So it's amazing to hear.